Hey, welcome back to another episode of Whiskey Row. So tonight we're going to be talking about how to start a bourbon collection. So many of you that are watching the channel are fairly new to bourbon. You are wanting to get more into it. You want to start your own collection. You've decided you love bourbon, that it's going to be your life's passion. Maybe not your life's passion, but you guys are passionate about it. You want to start a collection. You maybe have a couple bottles already, but today we're going to talk about how to take it to the next level. How to go from kind of that beginning stage of discovering bourbon and those first couple of bottles to actually starting to create a collection. Now, before we get into it, if you end up enjoying the video, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not. And tonight I am sipping on a Sagamore Spirit Double Oaked Rye Whiskey. So we have in front of us 6 bottles. Now, what we're talking about when we talk about how to start a bourbon collection is we're not saying, okay, here's your budget, go buy these bottles. I don't know what your budget is. Maybe some of you have a very low budget. Maybe $200 is all you have to start your collection. Others may have $500 as a starting spot for your collection. Whatever amount you have, hopefully you can take some of the advice in this video, some of the bottle recommendations in this video, and apply this to your budget and then start your collection there. I assume if you're in this position where you're actually going from just a bourbon drinker to wanting to actually start a collection, you're wanting to have a diverse set of bourbons. You may have your favorites, but we're talking about starting to diversify a little bit and being able to have people come over and look at your collection and say, "Oh, wow, you got a nice, got a nice set of bottles there." So that's kind of what we're talking about tonight. Now, I recognize that a lot of the bottles out there that you want, that collectors want, are very hard to find. So I'm not going to be putting out super rare bottles, and I'm not going to be recommending stuff that's very hard to find. I'm putting out good bottles, solid bottles, well thought of bottles that are going to help you kind of pad that collection of yours, kind of fill in some gaps, and be able to say, okay, well, at least I have one of this kind of thing, and I've got one of this kind of thing, and I've got this for this purpose, and build out that collection into what you're looking for. In my opinion, the corner of any good bourbon collection starts with Wild Turkey 101. Now, this is a legendary bottle. It is very, very affordable, comes in right around $22, $24. This happens to be the 1 liter version, 101 proof. So it's a nice proofy one. It's great for mixing. It's great for sipping. This can be a daily drinker easily for most people. It's got great flavor, great presence. I mean, this bottle really does bat out of its league. Even though it comes in as a relatively inexpensive bottle, many people would consider paying much more than that for this bottle, for this product, especially if you haven't tried it, if you're not really familiar with it, if you haven't kind of learned, your palate hasn't kind of matured and grown to enjoy this. It is spicy. There's a little bit of a Wild Turkey funk. It's a very classic, quintessential bourbon. And obviously now that they've got this new bottle with the embossed glass turkey on the bottle, it's much prettier than the old label one. So it looks good in your collection, and it drinks amazing. Now, the next bottle that you're going to want to add to your collection is you're looking for a really good bottle right around $30, $32, a little more balanced, a little more unique, but still a great bourbon. And to me, a great example of this, and what I would recommend, would be an Evan Williams single barrel. You could go with the Cooper's Craft 100, which is also an amazing bourbon in the same price point, and I highly recommend that as a great sipping, great cocktail, great all-around, overall amazing bourbon. But to me, the Evan Williams as a single barrel adds a little bit more character, because now you're looking at a little bit of a difference from every bottle, assuming it comes from a different barrel, could taste slightly different. So you get a little bit of a nuance there. You get that Evan Williams classic single barrel taste, which is very sweet, a little bit of a nut to it. You go on the back, it's barreled on a certain date, it's bottled on a certain date. You know how old it is. In general, this one is 8 years. So you have an 8-year, pretty much 8 years age stated bourbon, single barrel vintage. The proof's kind of low, but it's a great sipper, and it's a great story to start building a single barrel collection. Because one of the things that I found that as I've built out my collection, right, I've got a lot of different bottles of bourbon, a lot of different bottles of whiskey from around the world. But when you start to build out these standard profiles, you start to find yourself going for single barrels, because it creates a little bit of a unique thing. So then you can compare this Evan Williams single barrel to the last one that you had, or the next one that you're gonna buy. And it's easily accessible and affordable to start playing in that single barrels. Now, store picks are kind of the same concept. Now, the next bottle tonight, We're gonna, again, we're talking about collecting, so this is a limited edition one. Yes, it's pretty readily available, or has been for at least the last year and a half, 2 years, but they call it a limited edition, so there's a little bit of specialness there. It's a little unique. It's a spin-off of a major brand, but that's Maker's Mark 101. And the reason I recommend this one is because, one, it's weeded. So now you've got a weeded bourbon in your collection, so it's got a little bit different flavor profile. It's not the Maker's 46, it's not the Maker's Standard, but the Maker's Mark 101 is an amazing, sweet, delicious, very tempered, very well balanced, 101 proof, a little bit, it's a little special with that limited edition. And to me, it's a great, great place to add in something a little above. It's $50 now, so we're price jumping a little bit from these bottles, but you end up with this really, really nice sipping weeded bourbon to build out that collection. Again, you're trying to diversify, a little bit of a unique thing here, not necessarily all just standard run-of-the-mill stuff that you can buy in every store. Now, this you might have to look for a little bit. Now, some alternatives to this you might consider if you can't get a hold of this one. You might want to do like a Russell store pick or a Rebel Distillers Collection store pick, maybe even like a Bardstown Fusion series. So we're talking about right around that $50 range, something a little special, maybe a 1910, 1920. I tend to not want to go there because that's kind of run-of-the-mill, kind of standard. So something a little bit different, a little bit special. We're wanting to build this. We're going to jump in price again by about another, $10, $15. We're going to go up to about $60, $65. But we're also going to add in something that's a high proof, a barrel proof, but not a mild barrel proof. We're going to talk about a bold barrel proof. Now, there are several different options that you could look at in this category, but to me, the winner and the one that I would recommend you get is a Jack Daniel's single barrel proof. Now, this particular one is from 2016. I haven't even opened it yet. I'm very, very excited to get into this one. Somebody helped me get this bottle, and it comes in at 131.9 proof. I'm very happy to have this. Again, it's a very old one, and I'm really excited to see how this compares with the other Jack Daniel's single barrel proofs that I've been drinking lately. Most people, when they come over, if they're looking at your collection and they see this, and they're going to be, why did you get a Jack Daniel? Anything that's not Jack Daniel's Old Number 7 is actually an amazing, amazing bourbon. Yes, I know they call it Tennessee whiskey, but legally it qualifies as bourbon, so I'm calling it bourbon, and I'm adding it to the list tonight. But to me, this is the best $65, $70, $50, whatever price you want. When you're talking about anything under $75 barrel proofs, this is the best in my opinion. Now, if you don't want to go this one, if you're able to get your hands on it, the Elijah Craig barrel proof would be a great option at this price point, as well as maybe a Larceny barrel proof. I don't necessarily love the Larceny barrel proofs. To me, I would go with the Elijah Craig barrel proof or the Jack Daniel's single barrel proof. But look for something, again, a little unique, a little higher proof, something a little bolder, something that you pull out on special occasions or to share with buddies when they come over. It's just like, you got to try this. This is pretty good. Because a lot of times when you guys are getting into bourbon, you're not doing it alone. You're not the only one, right? You got a buddy that you're doing this with. You got a family member. So you're doing it together. So obviously you might want to counterbalance what you're doing with what they're doing if you're sharing a lot. The point is that you want to get something high proof. And to me, you can't go wrong with the Jack Daniel's single barrel proof. Now, to me, those four are kind of the cornerstone, right? They're, you got you got a mixer, a great sipper, a legendary classic quintessential bourbon. You got this really nice sweet peanut butter and jelly thing going on with the Evan Williams, a little bit of spice there, not too expensive, but you're bringing in a single barrel. Then you got makers, you've got a weeded bourbon, a good proof, a little bit of a limited edition, a little limited series thing going on. Then you're talking about a bold, spicy, rich barrel proof type of thing, cask strength type of thing going on with the Jack Daniel's. Anybody who's collecting bourbon is going to be pointing out, you're yelling at the screen right now, I'm missing something. And you're right, I know I am. But again, we're trying to get beginners in a good place in their collection, right? We're trying to bring the couple of bottles that they've picked up here and there, or their daily go-to sippers, or their daily go-to bottles, and we're trying to add to that and elevate their game, right? That's what we're trying to do. Now, one of the things you're going to want to add to this collection as soon as you can find it is a good Buffalo Trace product. Whether it's the regular $24 bottle, and that's pretty good. It's okay. It's not my favorite. It's not what I would recommend. To me, the spot where you should look, Eagle Rare. To me, Eagle Rare coming in at around $30, $35, $40. Sometimes you can find store picks, and if you can, go for that because that would be amazing. But if you can't find a store pick, then the standard Eagle Rare 10-year, very, very well done, very polished bourbon. It introduces you to that Buffalo Trace line. It's hard to look at someone's bourbon collection and call it a collection without having something Buffalo Trace. To me, the Eagle Rare 10-year, it's perfect for that. You can get an E.H. Taylor small batch. That's a great option too. But for me here in Virginia, that's a much harder bottle to find than Eagle Rare. And I would much rather have an Eagle Rare on my shelf than to not have any Buffalo Trace. So get that Eagle Rare, get that E.H. Taylor. If you can get a nicer one like a Stag Junior or an E.H. Taylor single barrel or an Elmer T. Lee or something like that, you stumble on one for a really good price, that's a great bottle to go after as your first one you're going to kind of chase a little bit. Now don't go crazy, right? You don't want to sink all your money into something like that because you're starting out, right? You don't want to go crazy. So enough about that. But the point is you need to get a Buffalo Trace on your shelf. That needs to be there. Now, last bottle up tonight, and one that I would highly recommend. This is where I would go and say a critic's choice, right? The critics love, or what the judges at the World Spirits Competition love. It's that emerging bottle that's super special, or everybody should have, or everybody should try, right? It's that kind of a story behind this bottle. The best option for this category is 1792 Bottled in Bond. This one is super well thought of by bourbon tasting and whiskey tasting experts. It's fantastic in my opinion, but even if you haven't had it, or maybe you don't like 1792 small batch, this is very, very different. It's a step above. It's dark, it's rich, there's a hint of a peanut profile, there's some berryness, there's caramel for days. It's like this dark brown sugar. It's a very, very well done bourbon. When I talk, a lot of times you guys hear me talk about flavor knobs. Well, this has all the flavor knobs. They're all turned to 5 and they're all good. It's not what I would say traditionally a great sipper. To me, a great sipper, all the flavor knobs are balanced and they're all turned down to 3. It's very muted, very smooth, very easy sipping, nothing spiky. Some other options that would kind of fill this bill, I don't like them as much. Henry McKenna 10. People love those single barrel Henry McKenna 10s. They can be quite pricey at times. To me, it's an inferior bourbon to this, in my opinion. But if that's your flavor, you like the Henry McKenna, you've had it before, maybe that's the bottle that you put, that's the critic's choice. Maybe it's a 1920 from Old Forester, because you watch YouTube and so many whiskey tubers are talking about how great 1920 from Old Forester is. And it's fantastic. So again, you're adding that little bit of a specialness to it, right? It's part of a collection, right? It's not necessarily something you're going to drink every day. But to me, this is the bottle that you'd go for in that category to kind of round out that beginning bourbon collection. You've got a couple of bottles and you want to kind of expand and start to fill some gaps. My point is I think this is a great place to start when you're trying to build that bourbon collection in 2022. Happy New Year if you haven't heard it from me yet. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Come check out our live stream tonight, Thursday night at 9 p.m. I'm going to be cracking some of these open. We're going to be sipping them. We're going to be talking about them. We're going to be talking about alternatives. You guys can get on there on the live stream and tell me what alternatives you'd like better than these. But all that said, thank you so much for joining me tonight. And until next time, find a bottle you love.